Hey guys, this week I'm gonna read books only if they have pink covers. Why, you may be wondering? Well, as I've been writing my own book, I've been trying to dream up what my book cover would look like, and I've always been drawn to pink covers. I don't know what it is, I think they're so cute, and I wanna know, is there some specific requirement for having a pink cover? Should mine have a pink cover? This is a real question that I'm asking myself. Wow, who knew I had so many pink books? This might be funny to say after pulling all these down, but first I want to visit the bookstore. Okay, it's time to pick some pink books, and I'm book shopping with a friend, Ashlyn. This was my book expert friend in this video, and now she lives in the same city as me. I feel like the most obvious thing for pink books is the romance genre, but I think it would be fun to try and find books that are not romance that have pink covers. I've pulled 2 books that are pink so far. They were at the front with employee reviews. One of them is very popular, The Idiot by Elif Batuman. I don't understand the vibe of this book. It's nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, and I just can't tell what the vibe is, but it's very hit or miss on the internet. I also pulled this book, What It's Like in Words by Eliza Moss. I saw an employee review at the front and it looks very interesting. It doesn't have many reviews on Goodreads and it's definitely pink. This is pink, right? So we have 2 books so far. I think I'm gonna try to find one more. We have a pink book haul, and it's genuinely making me giddy. It's a very aesthetic stack. I thought I was only getting 3, and then on my way out, I realized I didn't buy any romances, and I said the most obvious choice was romance, and I guess it was just so obvious that I ignored it. So on the way out, I picked up 2 more books, which were romances. I ended up getting this first one that I picked up. The reviews sound amazing. It has echoes of Sally Rooney and Lily King, and she wants to be a writer, but she can't get past her first draft. She's almost 30, she's not in a relationship yet, and she gets really obsessed with getting into a relationship with a man who is kind of toxic, I think, and apparently it reads like poetry, which is just my favorite type of writing, so I'm super excited to get into this one. And I did end up getting The Idiot. I'm a little bit nervous about this one because I want to read multiple books this week and I just don't know if this is a slower one. I'm very curious about this book though. And then I'm super happy that I found this one because I thought it would be great to find a horror book with a pink cover because duality. This is Youth Juice by E.K. Sathu? But I think this is a horror novel about beauty standards, which is the only horror book I want to read. Something to do with a skincare brand. I am very curious about this one. It's probably like one of the only horror books I'll pick up this year. And then the 2 romances I picked up on my way out were Book Boyfriend, because I love Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigma Broca. They are a married author duo, and I feel like they always just drop books without me realizing that they've dropped something new. And I love how the cover has books that are tabbed up. And then First Time Caller by BK Borson. I feel like this one is so viral right now. This cover is super different than her usual style, and I downloaded one of her other ones and I couldn't get into it, but I've seen raving reviews about this one. So that is my stack of pink books for the week. I won't be getting through all of them, but I'm certainly gonna try my absolute best. Let's see which one I pick and get started. Good morning, it's the next day, and I'm 82 pages into First Time Caller, and it has a great first 3 chapters. You get the guy's POV and the girls, and Lucy has a 12-year-old daughter who calls into this romance advice hotline on the radio for advice for her mom because she hasn't dated anyone since having her child. So that's what we're following, and I'm about to go get my allergy shots, and I sit there for an hour and a half, so I think I'm gonna get a really good chunk. Well, hopefully I finish the book today, but I'm gonna get a really good chunk of reading done there. I'm now 275 pages in, and there are 420 pages. I really like this book. It's a simple romance, and I really like the 2 characters. Lucy is a mechanic, which is really cool to hear about, and Aiden has a really compelling backstory with his family life and why he doesn't have hope anymore, because it's pretty common to see in romance books where the main character is like, I don't believe in love anymore or in romance. And sometimes it can just feel kind of gimmicky for the story, but this one feels realistic because his mom has gotten sick multiple times, so he's taught himself not to hope. The podcast aspect is also really fun, or it's not a podcast, it's like a live radio show. And the whole city of Baltimore falls in love with Lucy and her journey to find love. She goes viral, and it's just really sweet. Like her 12-year-old daughter really wants her to find love. So yeah, it's really simple and it's really easy to read, fast paced. I really like it so far, and honestly, I just love the cover. I finished First Time Caller last night, and I don't really have overcomplicated thoughts about this book. I feel like it was really sweet and cute. I liked both of the characters, which is pretty important for a romance book. I liked the setting, the radio show aspect. It started off fast, it stayed fast. There were some longer spice scenes towards the end, and overall, it was a pretty normal rom-com. It wasn't necessarily laugh out loud funny, or make you cry sad, or heart swoony. It kind of was just something to pass the time in a non-offensive way, which now that I'm saying that sounds not like that nice of a compliment. But I think it was a good book. I would give this 3.5 stars. I think if you want like a good, quick, fast rom-com, this is a good one to pick up. That's all my thoughts. Nothing so complicated in this review. Now, as you might be able to tell, it's now nighttime of the next day. And which one can you guess that I've been reading all day in my pink pile? If you guessed What It's Like in Words, you would be correct. I've been reading this one all day, and I'm now 166 pages into it, and it's only 300 pages. I'm over halfway, and so far, this book is so hard to read because she is in love with a man who is so horrible to her, and it's very obvious to the reader, I think, that he's just making her the butt of the joke. He's manipulative, everything is her fault. She's obsessed with him but doesn't have really a good reason to be. She does not use quotation marks, just like Sally Rooney, my first time reading a book like that, who was not Sally Rooney. And she's also an author, but she's struggling to get anything down on the blank page. It's honestly really sad to read, and I think it's probably good that it's out there in case you happen to read it and notice things in your own relationship, in case you don't know that you are part of a toxic relationship. But definitely not like a fun read. It's like the antithesis of a romance book. This is the opposite of romance. Good morning. It's not morning anymore. It's 3 p.m., but I finished What It's Like in Words. My thoughts. First of all, I think that this book was written well, and I really liked the best friend character, Rue. Those were probably my favorite aspects of the book, and I will also say she did a phenomenal job of portraying what being in a relationship with someone who has narcissistic tendencies and is a manipulator is like. But here's the thing that was difficult about it, and I want to tread lightly because I know that toxic relationships like this are more common than people think, and the number one thing that people misunderstand about them is how difficult it is to get out of them. But I do wish that there were certain aspects of the toxic main character that we understood why Enola was so obsessed with him and wanted to be with him, because I read a lot of Vari McFarlane books, and she also puts a lot of toxic relationships into her books, and when I read those ones, I understand why the character likes the person who is manipulative of them, and when the character gets gaslit, it feels like you're getting gaslit. This one, it feels like you are definitely an outsider, and from the jump, you can vividly see that he is so bad for her. So it's frustrating from page one.
As I'm editing this, I'm remembering that I think she was writing in the past tense, reflecting on the relationship, which is probably why we feel like we're on the outside of it. So maybe my critique would have been, I wish she would have written it as it was happening so that I could have felt like I was Enola in the relationship.
We didn't get to see why she was addicted to him, and we just knew that she was. So it made it a very frustrating read because about 220 pages into it, I wanted it to be over. Like, I was just sick of reading about this character. But I think the thing that she did very well in this book was the toxicity and the manipulation, and how she even carries over those tendencies into a different relationship, even though she doesn't really mean to. She did that so well, so incredibly well. This book definitely has a darker tone. So overall, I would give this book 3 stars. I don't think it was bad by any means, and I think this could be cathartic if you've been through a relationship like this, because you will get to see so clearly why the relationship is bad, kind of like how people on the outside of relationships can see things, whereas when you're in them, you can't. And I craved the feeling of having the perspective of being in it, because I am in Enola's POV, but I didn't feel like I was in it. I feel like I was watching it. So that's just my biggest critique of it. But yeah, super interesting read. I'm glad that I picked it up. It was her debut, a great debut novel for sure. Not all pink book covers are happy books. This was a very dark vibe. So I read 2 out of the 5 books in our stack. What am I gonna pick next? After this one, I don't know, but I definitely wanna not feel frustrated anymore. So I don't know if I can go for the horror. I don't know if I can go for the idiot. I kinda want something light, like the romance book, but I don't know, we'll see. Good morning, it's the next day. I'm about to go get my allergy cluster shot, so I'm gonna be there for like 2-ish hours. And the pink book that I've chosen to read, I think, well, it has to be because I'm bringing it, is The Idiot. I've read the first page of this book twice, and every time I just feel so impressed. It's so simple, but it already makes sense why it has a Pulitzer Prize. And I'm very curious to read a book that has a, well, I guess this just says Pulitzer Prize finalist. It didn't win the actual award, but I'm very curious to read a book that's even nominated for it, because in this book, she's in a group of other aspiring authors, and she kind of mentions how the guy that she's dating, who's writing a book, will probably go on to win a bunch of novelist awards. And then I was thinking, like, which books have I read that I'm obsessed with have awards? Like, does Emily Henry have any literary awards? And I looked it up, and romance doesn't win literary awards, which this probably is an obvious topic. It's probably talked about, but I just thought that was pretty jarring. But in other news, led me to want to read a book that was a Pulitzer finalist. So let's find out why it got nominated. I've been a little puffy and swollen post cluster allergy shots. They also had me take prednisone. So it's 11 a.m. now, but it looks like I just woke up. I feel like I've been reading this book for a millennia, and not because it's bad, but its style is very, very, very interesting. And I'm only 166 pages into it. There's no chapters. It's just 3 parts. And there's very rarely like full scenes that play out, because it's just these different paragraphs. And a new paragraph means a new thought, a new setting, new place and time. It's very compartmentalized. And there's very rare moments where you're actually just like in a scene, and it makes me feel like I'm never in the story. But if I had to describe the plot to you, I feel like I'm gonna butcher her name, but we're following Celine as she goes to her freshman year of Harvard. And we just watch her sign up for a bunch of different classes, especially language classes, which she's very interested in. And the writing style is super dry. It's supposed to be witty. It's funny in a way that's supposed to be plain. Like, the events themselves are supposed to be funny, but it's not telling any jokes. Does that make sense? It has made me laugh out loud a few times. For example, she wins some sort of award for her writing, and as the lady on the phone is telling her this, she says, "Are you excited at all?" And she responds, "Definitely, I'm super excited, thank you." Let me just read you the actual quote so you can understand the writing style. "Dread clenched my stomach. I liked that I had won a contest and that they thought I was a boy, and I was glad about the $50. But I didn't want my story to be published or to read from it. I didn't want anyone to think I thought it was good." Which, that made me laugh so hard because I relate to that sentiment. Just the embarrassment of putting something out there is admitting that you think it's good. Like, that's just true and funny. And then I think another main part of the plot is email has just come out. So it's this new phenomenon, and she emails back and forth with one of her classmates, Yvonne, and they speak very pretentiously about language and how language gives the world meaning, but what if the world has no meaning without language? And does the language that you speak change the way that you view the world? All these different questions, and she starts to fall in love with him. But I saw some sort of review that said it's like a hilariously gone wrong romance, so I don't think it's gonna be happy for this character. And I say all this to say, I don't know if I can keep reading this right now. The amount of times that I've gone on Goodreads to read the reviews to try and figure out what I'm reading, I think I've finally found the review that thousands of other people have found on Goodreads to convince them to stop reading the book. Someone said that the writing is great, but the style is horrible. And I wouldn't say it's horrible, but I will say I'm not getting into it, and I think it's gonna be a very monotonous, slow read. And also, something that she wrote either in an email or was one of her thoughts was that Yvonne's emails were so difficult to understand that they became interesting simply because they were difficult to understand. And I feel like that's what this book is. It's exciting because you feel like you're supposed to be gathering a meaning that you can't quite gather. And you feel like you're just about to understand, but then you're like, but maybe there's an aspect of this that's too smart for me, which usually I am obsessed with, but at the moment I just can't picture reading another 320 pages of this. So this might be a DNF, but I feel like I'm gonna keep reading it, but with no timeline, like very slowly alongside other books. I don't know, we'll see. I've officially put down the idiot for the day, for the week, for the month, for the year. So I figured we should try to read one of my other pink books. So I chose Book Boyfriend by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Baroka, the married author couple, and I'm now 149 pages in. Let me just explain the premise to you so that you can understand the vibes. Picture the ACOTAR series, super famous romance fantasy book series, and then picture a week-long immersive experience where people act like the characters in the book. That is what we're following as the main character Jennifer attends this event, and her arch nemesis from work, Scott Daniels, is also there. Now, for context, before I say what I'm gonna say, I gave one of their books a 5 stars, and the writing style and how emotional it was so different than this book. This one is so cheesy, and the jokes are so, like, they're just so, I don't know, I feel like the characters are acting like they're in middle school, and they're almost 30, so I've had to listen to a lot of this book to get to this point, but now I'm back to reading it, and it's okay. I also debated DNFing this one, but just DNFing 2 books back to back in the same video feels like failure, so hopefully it'll pick up now that I'm halfway through it. She's trying to win a game within this week-long experience so that she can have a one-on-one dinner with an actor who is playing a character from the book. So the vibes are very nerdy, if you can't tell. It's 9 p.m. now, and I finished Book Boyfriend. Great title. I did not enjoy this book, but I have a hard time giving reviews for books that I don't enjoy, especially since I've been trying to write my first book. Getting to see how much effort is put behind the scenes, I feel incapable of using book reviews as this sort of like, I don't know, I just can't do them without picturing the author and what they went through to make the book. To be fair, this one is not their first book, so it's not quite as harsh, I think, to give it constructive criticism, because on the surface this book is made for people who are fans of books, and as you can see, I feel like I am part of that category. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily like deep into fandoms, but I definitely am obsessed with books and fictional characters, and Jennifer in this book, her whole struggle is that she over romanticizes things because of the books that she reads. So I feel like this could have been very relatable for a lot of people, but it just didn't really hit home. I feel like it was trying to be very funny the whole time, and the humor maybe was for, I don't want to make it like a generational thing because I think maybe it just wasn't funny for me, but I think if you're Gen Z, it's not the humor that I like, at least. And I read a lot of cheesy things, as in like cheesy sweet or even cheesy funny sometimes, but this was to a point where I was like, it feels like old Pinterest quote humor. Does that make sense? Like, one of the lines said something to the effect of, I'm convinced if Catherine, the fictional character from the series that she loves, discovered caramel cappuccinos, she could have defeated the final boss in book 1 instead of book 5. Like, stuff like that just didn't work for me. So I think I'm gonna give this book 2.5 stars, which, just to leave this on a positive note, let me show you the book that I gave by these authors that was 5 stars. These are the same authors, which is tabbed up, and I remember absolutely loving this book. Definitely not knocking the authors. I've also read Do I Know You by them, which was really fun. This was like a 3.5 stars, but this was also a great book. So out of 5 pink books this week, I read 3.5 of them. I also read a chapter of the horror book, and I, for some reason, just felt like it wasn't the book for me this week. Probably just putting it off because it's horror. I didn't notice any through lines in any of these books for the cover being pink, so I guess that means my book cover could be pink, especially this one. If I had just read the words in this book, I would have never guessed that it was pink. For research, comment down below your favorite book cover, and I will look them up and I will keep them in mind. And in the meantime, if you want to keep up with my writing journey, I post about it on here or on Instagram sometimes, and if I am gone for a while, it is because I am actually writing, so I hope to see you soon. Bye!